So, Hyun Seung Lee, it's great to have you with us today here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Hyun Seung, you have an amazing story. You grew up in an elite family in North Korea, and you and your family defected in 2014, right?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so first, could you tell our audience, describe for us the family that you grew up
Okay.
in?
So before I describe my background, so it was 2013 that Kim Jong-un started to kill his uncle, and then around his uncle, there are almost hundreds of officials were executed, and then that incident made my father and me, my entire family, to rethink the communist regime. And then my sister was studying in China, and then her roommate's also North Korean student. And then after their class, North Korean agent came to my sister's room, and then they grabbed my sister's roommate and then escort her to North Korea. And then her last text message to her, my sister, was, "Hey, can you pack my thing? Then I don't think I can come back." And then my sister was shocked, and then she came back to home, and then she was very shocking, and then, "Oh, my friend was arrested, and then how can I help?" And then, my dad and me, and then there's no way we can help because it's all related, Kim Jong-un's decision. And so that was happened November 2013. And then I went to Pyongyang September 2014 with my father, and we found out that. So also my, friend was executed with his father-in-law, and then another friend was sent to political prison camp because his grandfather was close associate with Kim Jong-un's aunt, Kim Kyung-hee. And then all these things, gave me hard time to understand the true nature of the regime. And then my family gathered one place and then decide that, oh, this is not the country we can live, and then this is not the leader we should serve. So we made tough decision. So I think it was the decision that whether we live as a slave or we, find the freedom for ourselves. So I'm proud of my family. Then we decide to defect for freedom. So I was so-called elite class in North Korea, and my dad served 2 times as a presidential appointee job. So he was as a CEO and chairman of one of the biggest company in North Korea. As you know, North Korea owns everything, so it is of course state-owned, entity. I was able to get highest education, studying foreign language, and then I was had a chance to study abroad in China. And then before I got to China, I volunteered to serve military. So I served more than 3 years of North Korean military.
More than 3 years?
Yes.
In Special Force, right?
Yes. It was later I moved to Special Force, and then I became a member of North Korean Workers' Party, which is, Communist Party. And I was 20, so I'm so proud of myself become a member of the Workers' Party because nobody can do that at early age. Usually North Korean men can, become a member of Workers' Party like ages 30 or 40. So I'm so proud of myself. And then all this belief is collapsed because of the brutal executions and then the fake propaganda.
So before that, you actually firmly believed in the regime, and you grew up, when you grew up, you didn't see anything that contrary to what the regime promotes?
Yes, because as you know, we don't have any other information in North Korea. We cannot access internet, and then we don't have, many information. So I believe what North Korean propaganda said. And then I have no doubt our socialism, because socialism emphasizes, equality, and then everybody is the same, and they believe us, we having lots of freedom. And then we found out that I don't know what freedom was. And then they didn't teach us what freedom is, and then they never mentioned human rights. So surprisingly, I understand the freedom and human rights when I escaped. So first time I heard freedom and human rights, it was after I escaped.
So when you grew up in North Korea during the years, do you know how average North Korean people live?
Yes, because I went to military, and then like every year we went to rural area, help like farming as a student. So I experienced some of them, and then I found out that I think it's normal because my relatives in rural area also having same living conditions. So, but at the time I saw like every society has up and down. So maybe there's some people who live in good condition, in good condition, and other people bad. But I found out that majority of people are living very bad conditions. So through like outside the information, watching Korean dramas and American movies, and then they are living so good. Then having some questions about the socialism, that why socialism emphasizes that socialism is the best system in the world, and then why everybody's suffering, and then other people, we are educated all the time that capitalism is a bad thing, but why they are living so good?
When did you start to have the doubts? Was it after you left North Korea and went to China?
No, so I went to China 2007
Oh, okay.
to study, abroad
Where?
as an abroad student, overseas student in Dalian City in China.
And which school?
And it was the China Dongbei University,
So
Finance and Economics,
in Chinese, it's
in Chinese language.
what school is that?
The Dongbei 财经大学.
Good Chinese.
Thank you.
东北财经大学.
Yes.
So that's where you went.
Yes.
So how many years did you study?
It was 4 years study.
Okay.
And then I started realizing that all the North Korean propaganda is fake. And then I can access internet, Korean news outlet, and the Korean dramas, and then after a year while I'm staying in China, whole my perception was changed. And then, but I cannot criticize Kim regime because if I did, my family will be executed. So I cannot criticize, but I had a lots of doubt on the regime.
At the time, was your father in China as well?
Yes, my dad was assigned to induce investment in North Korea, and then my dad also he was trying to open the country.
What was his position?
So he was the negotiation representative of North Korean Joint Commission, and then also a representative of one of the North Korean company. So he was trying to do lots of introducing market economy into North Korea.
Imports to North Korea?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but since Kim Jong-un executed his uncle, and then all these efforts, meaningless. And then my dad think we should do something for North Korean people and this country, and we decided to left.
Now, how many years did you stay in China?
I think almost 7 years.
Almost 7 years.
Yes.
So after 4 years in that Northeastern University, where did you go?
So I was staying in Dalian City, and then I was become a North Korean agent to do business between China and North Korea.
So at the time, both of you in China, I think your dad and you both had doubt already, right, about the regime.
That's true. I think my dad had very, deep thinking about the, regime's policy and regime's behavior. So because he had, very betrayed feeling, because he was so loyal to country, and then he committed his entire life to the country and the regime. Now he realized that all those things are like meaningless, and then we cannot even save our people and then make them happy. How we can say that it is the best country in the world?
Now, so You're saying in 2013, Kim Jong-un did this mass execution.
Yes.
I think I saw in one of your interviews, you said that in one day he executed 500 people?
No, it's a 1 year, whole year.
Whole year.
So he started killing his uncle, and then, throughout the year, he almost, 500 officials purged. Many of them executed, many of them sent to political prison camp.
And it was very cruel, right? The way he executed those people?
Honestly, the two top officials around Jang Sung-taek, they were executed by anti-craft machine gun. So it was so brutal. And then those people who experienced the execution, and then they were speechless, and then they couldn't eat, meal for 2 or 3 days.
You mean they execute these two people in front of a lot of people?
Yeah,
Who
like more
were
than
they?
100. Those are like government officials, top leadership officials, generals.
My goodness. So they just did that in front of all these people.
Yes.
So did all these people dare to say anything afterwards?
No,
or?
they can't. They cannot say any word in front of them, because if somebody say that, then that person could be the same, victim.
Same fate.
Yes.
Now, why do you think Kim Jong-un is like that? He studied in Switzerland, right? You would think that having studied in Western school, at least he will have a little bit a recognition of Western democracy or human nature. Why do you think that's not the case?
I believe it was very short time, like around 3 years, and then he was into, basketball game and then other stuff, and then I don't think he's really understanding the Western culture and the society. And then he came back, and then he was also educated, by the regime privately. And then he found out that he is the top person in North Korea, and then he doesn't need to open the country, because he knew exactly if he opens the country, freedom and the information will spread out North Korea, and then he cannot maintain his authority. So honestly, he tried to open when in 2010, 2011, he studied his office, but he realized that opening country is so dangerous to this authoritarian regime. So he gave up, and then repeating his grandfather's policy.
And the same violence, the
Same violence. Yeah, more extreme than his father and his grandfather. So
Wow.
like his father, at least put people in the political prison camp, and then 7 years, 10 years later, somehow released some people. But this guy is
ruthless.
total execution, like Kim Jong-un. Total execution, executed people.
Wow. So I imagine if a lot of people saw that, they would have the same feeling, same reaction like you and your dad. Probably deep in their hearts, they start to collapse, like they don't believe in regime anymore. Did anyone else dare to defect or do anything?
I agree with you. And then I also heard lots of people, private conversation. They don't trust Kim Jong-un anymore. And then their belief on the regime collapsed as well. So they wanted to do something, but they don't know what to do. They don't have any vision after Kim Jong-un's collapse. And then the reason they cannot defect is because they have families in North Korea. Not like my family, they have no chance to defect. I mean, the entire family. Like my family also, if one of my family was in North Korea, I think we couldn't decide to defect. Because, it's very suffering to see families, executed or brutally tortured by the regime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fortunately, your family were all in China at the time?
Yes. My
Right.
dad have special permission by the regime, Kim Jong-un's father, that we can stay in China as a North Korean people. But my dad as I mentioned earlier, my dad was assigned the job to, introduce market economy to North Korea.
So at the time when your family defected, can you share a little bit about how you did that or in
Yep.
general?
In general, once we decided to defect, and then we were trying to find a way out, and then once we left China, I believe that CCP and the North Korean regime chased us, and then we were very worried that Chinese government blocked our flight or leaving. But luckily there was some help from Free Society, and then we were able to make it happen. And then later, my friends, after defection, my friends told me the regime was very furious to find us.
And you defected to South Korea first,
Yes,
and then to US.
that's correct.
Why did you leave South Korea?
So while we were in South Korea, North Korean regime showed my grandma, uncle, and my aunt on TV show to threaten us to not stay in South Korea. So unfortunately, we cannot stay longer in South Korea. Another reason is there was some, safety threat while we were in South Korea. So entire family's safety was risk. So we have to leave South Korea.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. So the North Korean regime showed your grandparents on TV, or
Yeah.
they were still in North Korea?
Yes, my grandma and my uncle and all the relatives are still in North Korea.
Oh,
So
relatives, they're still there.
yes, so they showed them on North Korean TV show, and then threaten us come back to Pyongyang.
That
the
if you
capital of-
don't, they're gonna.
I think that's the signal that if we keep, staying South Korea or helping South Korean government, then that means they want to do something,
To your relatives.
to my relatives.
So then you decide to leave South Korea. And do you know if your relatives are still safe in North Korea?
So unfortunately, I heard that several years ago, my uncle was jailed for life. And then one of my cousin's husband was killed because he couldn't get the surgery because North Korean government blocked his leaving the country to have surgery. So, and then all my family is relocated from the capital city. So that's the last information I had. So that's why I'm trying to save my relatives and my fellow North Koreans. That's why I'm trying to, my voice heard to international community.
Yeah, to tell them about what's going on in North Korea. So now that you're in US for 6-7 years, right?
Yes.
Tell us, how do you feel living in the free world?
First of all, it's very fresh feeling that once I landed United States, and then I believe that my entire body felt comfortable because I don't feel any threat, and then I don't any pressure. After several years of study, I found out myself that I have to let world know the situation in North Korea, and then the reality of the communist regime. That's why I'm at CPAC, and I'm trying to educate people.
Yeah, definitely. I think this education is so important because I feel that you're not only educating people about the communism in North Korea, but communism in general, right? Because do you feel you see a lot of socialism/communism sign in the free world, in the Western world?
Yeah, especially in US, I saw many people like young college students. They think socialism is better than capitalism. Actually, friends of friends told them they support Bernie Sanders and then socialism. So I was like, wow. And in 2020, the CPAC, the theme was socialism versus America, and then I was speechless because I never thought the socialism would be the topic of United States, because socialism is the failed system, and socialism's end goal is totalitarian system. And then I think, why do you think, socialism can work in the world?
Yeah, why?
So, and I think they are not educated. They only learn socialism through book, and then all those theories are looks good, sounds good, and then they think, it's much better than free democratic system. And then we've been there and done that, and I was living socialist country for 29 years. I experienced it North Korea and China as well. So all these system like China and North Korea, the main goal is total control, limit the freedom of people. And then U.S. young Americans, they think freedom is taken for granted. So they don't think, nobody will take freedom away from us. But my point is, if you are not awake, then your freedom will be eliminated while you're asleep.
Did you get a chance to talk to these American young students?
I made several speeches and then share my experience to young college students through
Like events or conferences?
Yeah, conferences. And then there's one amazing NGO, Liberty in North Korea. And then the NGO is helping North Korean people escape and then educate young Americans about North Korean human rights. So I had a chance to talk with them.
That's great. So you're also helping to do the K-PAC thing, right?
Yep.
Korean CPAC. So is the goal to bring the CPAC back to South Korea? And why do you see the need to bring the CPAC to South Korea?
So the Korea CPAC is established in 2019. The reason is South Korea also is in danger. And then I personally found out that, there's a lots of socialist followers control the legislative branch and government. And then especially current Moon administration is, I would say, they are communist regime.
Wow.
They want to control the people. They want to control the system, and then they won't make one party state like CCP, China. But many people in U.S. international world, they don't think South Korea can be socialist country or communist country. But I believe that if we are not, spread information to the world, or like if we are not fighting for these communists, and then they will eventually make South Korea into communist country.
Wow.
So, as you know, like 2020 in South Korea there was an election, and then among 300 seats, 180 seats were occupied by the leftist party, and then many people thought that there was election fraud. So this, we have upcoming presidential election March 9th, and then we are trying to, monitor the election. If there will be no more, fraud.
Do you think the Chinese Communist Party had something to do with the situation in South Korea? Because after all, they're so close.
Of course, China, influenced everywhere, every place in South Korea. And as you probably know, South Korea has the Confucius Institute.
Oh, Confucius Institutes, yes.
So
they have the most.
They have the most.
They have a lot.
Yeah.
How many they have there?
More than what I heard was more than 10,000 Confucius Institute.
10,000.
Yes. So South Korea is the actually number one country which have Confucius Institute.
Wow.
But ironically, there is zero Confucius Institute in North Korea. Because North Korea knows that Confucius Institute is not just a cultural exchange place, it's just a spy agency. So North Korean regime never allowed China to establish the Confucius Institute.
Oh, North Korea knows the CCP regime.
Yeah, they know each other.
They know each other. They're the same, so they know very well.
Of course.
Wow. So that must have a lot of influence on the.
Yeah, and then South Korea is relying on China so much economically, so like their trade like percentage like 30% of the overall trade. So even though like conservative party members reluctant to criticize China, but I think they should be brave. They have to talk about free society. And surprisingly, 2 days ago, there was a presidential debate, and then the leftist party's candidates unbelievably talked Ukraine provoked Russia. That's why Russia attacked Ukraine. That's total nonsense. Which means that the Korea 1900s provoked Japan and Japan occupied Korean Peninsula. That's the same logic.
This, I think it's very, very important that the communism and socialist evil be exposed everywhere in the world, because it's not only US, not only South Korea, but everywhere in the world. Now, talking about this Ukraine, the latest Ukraine situation, I actually want to ask you a question, because the Russian military force does not push as far and as fast as they think. And people are spreading on social media the picture of the Russian soldiers like lacking food or lacking gasoline. You were in North Korean military. So I think in your past interviews you said that North Korean military also the condition is really bad. What was it like?
Yeah, North Korean military, like, the food quality and the equipment, like training is not that ideal because of lack of all the resources. But they have superior position like nuclear weapons, biological weapons, biochemical weapons, and hydrogen bomb, and especially they have a cyber warriors to attack South Korea. So, I don't think South Korean media emphasized much, but North Korea already conducted cyber terror against South Korea.
Wow.
They tried every, aspect of the South Korean system. They tried to hack nuclear power plant. They tried to hack the military headquarters, and then banking system, transportation system. So once war happened, they were starting hacking first. They want South Korea into chaos through hacking these old systems. Think about it. If all this happens, banking is not working, transportation, nuclear power plant, they lose power, then, it'll be total chaos. And then they, launch missiles, invasion. There's always step. And then North Korea has like a 3-day plane and 7-day plane to invade South Korea. So only deterrence of the war in Korean Peninsula is U.S. Army. So that's why the North Korean regime and then the South Korean, the pro-North Korean group trying to remove U.S. troops from the Korean Peninsula. And then they are working so hard in the law to U.S. Congress to introduce the bill so-called peace on the Korean Peninsula. And then, 30 members of Democratic members of Congress supported the bill. And then I believe that they don't know what it is. It eventually undermined U.S. and South Korea's security, and then make South Korea into like another war or like a socialist country.
So you're saying that these communist regime, even though they're not treating their soldiers well, they're not feeding them enough, not even treating them well, but they develop other weapons.
That's true.
To try to
high technology, and then the bullets like nuclear weapons. So they want to trade soldiers well, but they have no resources. That's why South Korean government keep trying to give so-called humanitarian aid. And then I was in North Korean military 2002-2005, and then surprisingly I ate South Korean rice all my military life, because at the time the leftist government gave lots of, I assume that billions of dollars of aid. So
wow.
North Korean soldiers.
They're feeding their enemies, basically.
Yeah, basically. I was like, So, and then every week we get education that South Korean presidents, they are so weak. They kneel down in front of our great leader, and then the rice, all these resources we owned not, they gave us for free. So don't envy or have fantasy of the South Korean regime.
Wow. So is your next step to go back to South Korea to have this K-PAC events and to do more education there?
Yes. So we are planning KCPAC, Korea CPAC every year. So we had a successful event 2019. But unfortunately, due to the COVID limitation, so we couldn't hold the successful events, in-person successful event, but we had a virtual event 2020 and 2021. So hopefully this year we can have in-person wonderful events.
Wow. Well, I wish you all the success. And also hope that your effort will help more people to realize socialist communism is really an evil system, and we should all try to defend freedom and not let these evil, ideology infiltrate the free world. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.